Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to this community showdown. It's going to be Nurgle led by Outer Region facing off against the Dwarves, who shall be helmed by Hidden here on the Tsar Rebellion map. As far as the build goes here for old Nurgle, it's going to be kind of a mixed bag. We got some big heavy hitters here in the front line, which do provide Nurgle with some much needed ranged. It is going to be the Soul Grinder with his armor-piercing bombardments, and honestly, if he can avoid Dwarven cannons, maybe find an angle where the cannons can't quite see him, he can put some hurt on the Dwarves and also is a decent armor-piercing fighter up close. But again, a little bit vulnerable against cannons for sure. In the backfield here, we do have Kugath Plaguefather, and yeah, he's the ultimate raid boss here in this game. Of course, 15,000 HP, very, very difficult to kill this guy in melee. But if you have cannons, you have guns, you have bows, different things like that, you can certainly take him down, but it's still no easy feat. Oftentimes you'll see Nurgle games where the Nurgle player's down like 4,000 or 5,000 value because they're putting all their firepower into Kugath, he's just absorbing it, he heals up, and suddenly the Nurgle army's looking pretty jacked. But yeah, we'll see how he goes. Certainly a little bit of a riskier pick against Dwarfs, but you know, he can work. If he can survive the onslaught, he's extremely devastating, dominates pretty much any melee fight, has good magic, and it can absorb 15,000 HP worth of damage for sure. Well, obviously more than that if you include the healing cap. We got double cultists on the foot, and these guys are great. They don't have the best armor-piercing values, but they do have armor sundering built in, so they do lower the armor of their targets by 30. So if they're hitting like a Dwarven Miner unit, they're going to bring it down to 50 armor, which synergizes pretty well with other Nurgle units, which might lack armor-piercing. But more importantly, these guys are extremely tough to kill because they regenerate, they're low to the ground, and Dwarves like to shoot big targets with their bows and guns. But if you have Cultists of Nurgle just chasing your range units, it's actually very, very tough to kill them. So we got two of them, and it looks like they're going to be rocking the summon. So I definitely like the double cultists. I think it's very strong. And I mean, honestly, in almost every single matchup, having the 2 foot-based cultists, it's pretty decent. I mean, some matchups better than others, but in general, it's very strong. Marauders with great weapons, some badass chosen, and it looks like it's going to be Nurglings and basic Marauders grabbing this point here for Outer Region, and that's going to be the full party here on this side. Now, for the Great Dowie, going to be helmed by Hidden here, and certainly a very good Dwarf player. I know he likes to play Dwarves as well as Kislev, so he likes kind of those defensive factions with very tanky armored infantry and cool gun lines. What's not to love? Front line is blasting charges though, no surprises here. Blasting charges don't do the most against armor, but they're very good defending off chaff units like Nurglings, Marauders, and you know, one of the mainline strategies of Nurgle against Dwarves has probably been just, you know, Marauder great weapon spam, just going very wide and having a ton of, you know, great weapons and all that stuff. So these guys certainly a decent frontline choice for that. Secondary row is going to be Dwarf Warriors, and certainly man after my own heart here with the Iron Drake Flamethrowers, which in theory, if they can just sit and shoot at some big, slow Nurgle demons, they're going to be able to get some work done. On top of that, we do have your boy, Thoric Ironbrow. Well, big surprise there. And yeah, it's kind of like, I like Thoric, he's a very fun character, but he just overshadows all the other dwarf characters so hard. We also see a couple cannons here in the back. Cannons going to do devastating damage if they can sit on Kugath or any of those other big targets, but yeah, we'll see how well the target priority is done here. A couple Thunders in the back, and Thunders are nice because they're a little bit harder to dodge, so if your opponent has some sort of a flying threat or something maneuvering around, they can hit a little bit more effectively, and also he probably saw the Chosen and wanted to have some dedicated hard ranged armor piercing. So the Dwarf setting up here, but what I was about to go on a tangent on is, like I said, Thoric is awesome, you know, but he's got great combat stats. He also has armor piercing, you know, he's got good armor. Like, he's objectively just a straight up better fighter than Belegar, right, who's going to be more of a dedicated combat character, and he's got the runes and a map-wide buff. It's kind of like there's no reason to take any of the other Dwarf Lords. I mean, I guess a theory could be that you could take like a bare bones Dwarf Lord to have an even wider army and just have more range supporting and whatnot instead of more melee, but overall, like, Thoric just seems like such an auto take. I mean, there are a couple of factions that have that, like Dark Elves kind of have that as well, like Malekith and the basic casters that they have access to, and the Dark Elves are kind of an auto take as well, but even still, something to think about. So objective 2, sitting here, going to be going to Nurgle. They're going to be sending up their cultists, which is smart, keeping the rest of the army out of range with the heavy hitting guns and the bows, and, well, no bows back here, actually, just double Flamethrower, double Iron Drake, I love it, and the Thunders as well. And, you know, on bigger maps like this, the cannons can be, you know, they can't quite reach. So if we look at the cannons right here, you can see the Soul Grinders able to bombard the Dwarven forces while staying out of range. Kugath is also doing the same thing, so very slick positioning here. If this was a smaller map like Itza, those cannons would be able to punish a lot harder, but the Dwarves moving up to get the objectives is putting them in the firing box here of the Nurgle bombardments, which, you know, yeah, this guy's throwing his Nurglings. We got the Nurgle mortar right here as well. And it's doing a little bit of damage. Nothing too devastating, honestly. The Miners with Blasting Charges are a pretty cheap unit, and so are these ones. I mean, yeah, they're both Miners with Blasting Charges. Pretty cheap units. So overall, it's not going to be that bad, but certainly helps Nurgle if they can get some value out of that artillery here. In the back, we do see Outer Region calling in some of the best anti-dwarf units that the forces of the Plague God can bring to bear, which is going to be the Plague Toads of Nurgle. These things are pretty much born and bred to take down Dwarvish infantry. It wasn't always like that. When Game 3 first came out, these guys actually didn't have good armor-piercing values, but there was a patch, I think it was like 2 patches ago, when the Plague Toads of Nurgle got a big armor-piercing buff to their damage profiles, which made them pretty good generalists. Honestly, they can fight heavy shock cavalry reasonably well, now that they have armor-piercing, but where they shine, obviously, is against infantry, because their melee attack isn't the best, but when they get that bonus versus infantry of 7 mixed in there, it becomes a little bit better, and they can certainly trade up into the infantry. So the Dwarves going to be taking the objective. Nurgle was just teasing. It was just a prank. They just moved up with the 2 cultists and were kind of feigning that they were going to be kind of committing to the objective, but it looks like Nurgle's going to be sounding the old horn here in a second. We see the Plague Toads moving up, and you see the movement order given here by Outer Region. So he's going to be advancing up with the Chosen and the Marauders and pretty much everybody. Now, at this point, the Dwarf player needs to really, really switch his cannons onto something like high value. And, you know, shooting at the Barons of the Bog is a good call. Soul Grinder of Nurgle, Beast of Nurgle, or if you want to go after Kugath. But the thing about Kugath is, I'm sure many of you guys have played tabletop before, you know, it's a little bit easy sometimes to split fire and get greedy and try and take out multiple targets. It might be possible, yes, but focus firing is usually the way to go, especially against like healing factions. Is like you really want to, if you're going to be committing to do any damage to Kugath, you should go all in and try and take him down, rather than like split firing and just kind of tickling the pickle a little bit on 2 different directions there. But Nurgle's moving up, Cultists get on the point. A little bit of a cagey fight for the objective here as the forces of the Plague God do muster. We see the Marauders here. Also the Nurglings rolling up, little Nurgling golems, one of my favorite looking things in the game. It's hilarious. Marauders with great weapon, Beasts of Nurgle, and the Chosen are going to be lurking in the back, taking a very cautious approach, which is certainly smart. And it looks like a Rune of Wrath and Rune was cast by the Dwarf player. I think he was trying to anticipate the movement of the Nurgle forces, but unfortunately for him, he did miss that. Now, more firepower coming in here. I would imagine the Dowie cannons. What are they even shooting right now? Okay, they're shooting at the Plague Toads of Nurgle, which I don't think is the best call. I mean, yeah, it's going to do some damage, but if you just sit 2 cannons on the Soul Grinder of Nurgle, over the course of a long game, that thing is going to die for sure. It's going to get pounded. The cannons, of course, good armor piercing, and 440 range is no joke. It's going to be pretty hard to get away. Granted, I mean, the Soul Grinder could just run away, maybe reset, get out of range, and be unsummoned or something, but yeah. Anyways, bombardment's going down. Thunder's trying to get up in range, and the Dwarves very, very cautious here. It looks like they're using the dreaded face-to-foot style. If you guys have ever seen Kung Pao Enter the Fist, it is the Wimplo tactics here, as they do get punched in the face a little bit by the forces of Nurgle. I certainly think the Dwarves might be a little bit overcautious here. Granted, the cannons are now shooting in and going after the Barons of the Bog, which is a much better call than the basic Plague Toads. Barons of the Bog are an extremely disruptive unit, and the cannon fire getting in is actually quite good now. You can see several units of the Barons of the Bog basically going into the old trash can right here. So the old Soul Grinder is moving up as well, and I would imagine the guns are going to be lining up, and also the flamethrowers. Oh, I love it. It's a cool shot right there. Granted, Iron Drakes won't do crazy damage against armor, but if Thoric Ironbrow comes in for the rear charge, I don't know if he has the Rune of Slowness active right now. I think his runes are still on cooldown from that Rune of Wrath and Rune. You can see the Soul Grinder, though, actually getting a little bit buckled up here as the cannon fire starts to unleash havoc into the Barons of the Bog, and the Dwarven missile line here looking like it's a little bit close to the front. Certainly could be compromised. If Nurgle can just push through, they're going to be able to get on top of a lot of these missile pieces very, very quickly here. So we do see an overcasted Fleshy Abundance going down and healing up the Nurgle front line. And the Rune of Doom is active, so the entire Dwarven army is going to be sauced on those sweet, sweet Dowie steroids. Cannons in the back have trained onto Kugath Plaguefather, so now going to be trying to take out that bad boy. And but he's going for it. This is basically Kugath saying, hey, baby, I'm going all in. I'm going to be pushing into the backfield, probably going to end up dying at some point during this battle, but he's going to be doing his best to hold the Dwarves back for as long as he can while Nurgle tries to win on objectives, which is basically how Nurgle plays in tabletop. If you guys ever played a Nurgle army in tabletop, it's very much played in that style where they just take a beating and they usually get their armies tabled off, but they end up winning on points, which is pretty fun indeed. So in the front, Marauders fighting, and where are those sweet Chosen? Those are Marauders with great weapons, and the Chosen of Nurgle are, where did they go? Here they are. So the Chosen of Nurgle have made it over to this side of the battlefield, and you know what? I don't think the Dwarf player has really noticed that these are Chosen yet, and man, look at them, taking barely any damage whatsoever, and just absolutely butchering through these Dwarvish infantry. I mean, this is a huge mismatch. These guys are just like, you know, guys hanging out at the brewery who, you know, go and do a little bit of mining work and get conscripted into battle, battling some of the old world's most terrifying warriors. But it is what it is. You know, they try their best. In the backfield, we do see a little bit of chaos here as Kugath Plaguefather and his 2 cultists causing a lot of disruption in the backfield. We do see a Plague Bearer summon going down as well, which means one of the Nurgle cultists did get below its HP threshold. It needs to drop the summon. And overall, the Dwarven Cannon Crews pulled into melee, and this is super cost-effective for Kugath. He's just Mortis Engineing all these units. So the Slayers, the Miners here, even the Dwarven Cannon Crews getting hit on the Mortis Engine, but the Dwarven player has called in some nice reinforcements and is getting some good firepower. Here we see Thunder shooting, more Thunder shooting on this side. The other cannon has been shut offline though, and Nurgle so far has gotten a very good push in the backfield. Now, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. You see the Dwarves sitting at 7.8 thousand against 4,000. That's a big difference, right? But a lot of that value is tied into Kugath, and it's also tied into the Soul Grinder. The rest of the Nurgle army, for the most part, like the infantry corps, is still fighting relatively well and causing havoc. But yeah, if Kugath gets taken down, it's obviously going to be a big momentum shift, and the Dwarves will probably have a good opportunity to push back and get the objectives, but they're certainly going to want to hurry up in that regard. Nice Nurgle flanking here. Chaos Warhounds do find some Iron Drakes. Iron Drakes are certainly tanky, but volume of fire can drag them down, especially with Toads. So the Iron Drakes of the brave Dowie Empire get to be munched by the Plague God's Chosen here. Well, I hesitate to call Warhound the Chosen of Nurgle, but you guys get the idea. It's doing some work, and I'm sure Nurgle loves his adorable little puppies there. So looking at the back objective, I don't think anybody's threatening it. No, Objective 1 is chilling. Objective 2 owned by Nurgle. Looks like the Toads cleaning up some of the overextending Dwarven forces as the Chosen of Nurgle just continue actually being a bit of a shadow MVP here. They're going under the radar. A lot of the focus fires on Big Ku. Right as we look at the back, Kugath's just like, help me, I'm too weak, I'm dying. But yeah, he's getting blasted by all those guns, but those Chosen are just kind of routing pretty much everything they come in contact with, probably setting up over 800 value at this point. No, only about 500-600, but yeah, they're going to continue just cutting through these Dwarven troops, and Kugath's trying to get away. He's rolling on his motor scooter, but being chased by the anti-large Slayers certainly isn't fun for him. But yeah, Kugath is going down. And yeah, factions with shooting can usually deal with Kugath. It's really like factions with heavy melee focus that do struggle against him. Like, I can't remember the last time I've seen a Khorne player actually like take down Kugath. But, you know, it's a little bit more of an issue for land battle, right? Kugath in land battle against factions that have to fight into his box, it's very tough. But in domination mode, you can either just, you know, play the objectives and just fight where he's not fighting. There's plenty of tactics for dealing with him, but I can certainly see the strife that some folks might face in domination. Kugath getting bathed in the fire of the ancestors, though, here. As we see the Iron Drakes get a really, really nice amount of damage, melt that bad boy, and he has been sent straight back to Walmart here, so... Looking at the overall stage of the battlefield, we do see the forces of the Dwarves starting to move up, but a nice play here. Now this, we have one cultist here and one cultist here. So what this is doing is it's kind of roadblocking a lot of the Dwarven forces. These units otherwise could be up pressing the objectives, helping to recapture objective number 2, but instead they're like tied up on these cultists back here, being heavily disrupted. So that's what I'm saying about the cultists. They're really hard for factions like Dwarves to kill, in my experience, because usually what kills cultist type characters are other single entities that are pretty powerful. And the Dwarves, yeah, they have Thoric, but he's really slow. The cultists can probably outmaneuver him, which is pretty funny. But a faction like, you know, the Empire, for example, you can send a Boris Todbringer in there, a Karl Franz, whatever, and you're going to be able to get the job done. Flamethrower fire, unfortunately for the Dwarves, doing a little bit of friendly fire as they try and take down the cultists of Nurgle. Middle objective is owned by the forces of the Plague God, and now at this point, Outer Region, it's not quite triple cap territory, but it's getting very, very close. But Outer Region's just going to be probably swamping this middle objective, sending in Forsaken and Chosen of Nurgle. Looks like, yeah, those guys are still going strong. Barons of the Bog have been called back from the warp, ready to party once again. And isn't there a model in Warhammer where they have the Plague Toads, but they're rode by mortals? I guess that's Khorne, because Khorne has the Juggernauts that are rode by mortals as well as by demons. They have the Skull Crushers and the Blood Crushers. Does Nurgle have something like that? I know in the Age of Sigmar game they do, and I don't know if that was like a leftover from Fantasy, but basically it's like Rotflies who are being rode by these like giant like plated Nurgle warriors. I think they're called like Blight. What are they called, man? I can't remember. Some of you guys in chat will have to let me know, but I feel like that'd be kind of a cool addition to get like some Nurgle demon units that are being rode by mortals. Probably, honestly, it'll be something in a future DLC, I bet. So the Chosen colliding with the Dwarven troopers. Certainly going to be bleak for these dwarf warriors, but they'll be doing their ancestors proud. You know, if they're going to be going out, they're going out on their shields here. They're metaphorical shields. They don't have any shields, but they're going to be going down fighting these elite Chosen. They do have a Thane backing them up, so Thane might be able to help turn the tide a little bit, but overall I still think the Chosen will be able to 2v1 this position pretty well. And now your boy Thoric has made it to the middle point with some Dwarf Warriors as well and some Miners, and we start to see the objective flipping here. Now, I believe at this point, if the Dwarves are able to catch the objective very, very soon here, it's going to be, there's going to be some time. There will be a little bit of time, and they could just win on 2 objectives. It would be incredibly close, but yeah, we'll have to keep tabs on this and see when they eventually capture it. In the backfield, the Cultists of Nurgle still being an absolute nightmare to deal with, tying down Rangers, tying down these Miners with blasting charges here. A couple Forsaken dove greedily and deeply into the enemy backfield and is going to be routed off, and it looks like Hlidin here is going to be getting his gun line up, and we do see the Brave Thunders of the Dowie Empire back in action. This is actually a pretty cool map. So this is one of our Total Tavern map pack maps. It's a really big one. but it's a Chaos Dwarf map. It's really cool. I like this one a lot. And I can totally see a situation like this emerging. You know, you got like the Dwarves are rolling up. They're thinking they're like, all right, let's go kick some Chaos Dwarf butt. Let's head over here, see what's going on. And then there's just a Nurgle army randomly there. Like, all right, well, I guess that's good enough. We can fight Nurgle now. Iron Drakes with the flamethrowers going down, roasting some of these toads. Plague Toads of Nurgle forced back, and the objective actually was held by Nurgle. So it looks like the Chosen and the arriving Barons of the Bog are just absolutely melting. And yeah, the Dwarvish infantry will really get wrecked by Nurgle in general if they don't have range support. So they're going to need Quarrelers, they're going to need Iron Drakes, whatever, Thunders. They need that range firepower. Otherwise, like units like Barons of the Bog with their anti-infantry, their armor piercing, and their high HP pools are really going to get through these Dwarven trap units. And you can see that's really the case here. Thoric trying to hold it down. Chosen of Nurgle are broken off, actually. So Thoric and the Thane getting the job done. Forsaken still causing havoc in the distance. We see the dreaded outer region getting his Chaos Warhounds, and it looks like he's going to be looping around the back and trying to shut down the cannons, and it looks like he certainly got some good opportunities here. The Dwarf backfield very vulnerable. Rangers here beat up, cannons certainly very, very juicy looking, and this Cultist of Nurgle was actually able to go Mission Impossible, going straight Tom Cruise back here, baby, taking down these cannons. So this cannon is going to be paying the price as those doggos move in, and it looks like they're going to be heading across. Are they going to go after the Rangers? Maybe so, ladies and gentlemen. Now back on objective number 1, Nurgle preparing for the Helm's Deep. I think Nurgle knows they're going to be losing the middle, which they do, and they're just going to be anchoring down on this back point. Will the Dwarves be able to get there in time? Like I said, this map is quite massive, so it's a bit of a double-edged blade for the Dwarves. It's awesome in one respect for the Dowie because it's a huge shooting gallery. So their cannons, their guns, and their bows aren't really going to be having any obstruction. It's pretty flat, it's pretty open, it's big, so they're very happy about that. But on that same coin, it's really big, and it's going to take the Dwarves a long time to get across the map. We see Miners of Blasting Charges moving in, Iron Breakers, the heavy hitters of the Dowie Empire, going to be bashing through these Nurglings, and they don't hit super hard, but even still, they do have 35 melee attack, and also their weapon strength is still respectable despite being poisoned, so they're going to be able to get through those Nurglings, I would imagine. And the Dwarves basically just have to capture an objective to win. They're so far ahead of Nurgle on value that even healing wouldn't compensate for it at this point. But look at this, Outer Region getting real cheeky here in the backfield, man. He is one of the best Hound players out there. He is so good at stealing players back objectives. I think a lot of it comes from his early experience of playing Khorne a ton in Total War Warhammer 3. He's the Khorne guy. So he's used to using Fleshhound units, the back cap and whatnot. But a unit of Forsaken did come back. There's a Cultist back here, and also these Chaos Warhounds. And the Dwarf player has responded. He summoned in some units, but these are units that aren't really pressuring Objective 1, but rather they're going to be stuck here on Objective 3. And it's a nice distraction here by the forces of Nurgle, keeping the Dwarf player, in check. Love seeing some Iron Drake action. It's really cool. And they probably are up around 900 value. Yeah, 900 value right now. Not bad at all. Been able to pay for themselves. I think they cost 700, so honestly not terrible. Certainly performed well. I still think the most effective Dwarven missile piece against Nurgle is going to be the Quarreler, though. I just find that they trade just very effectively. And even with volume of fire, they can wear down some armor. And are really good against Plague Toads, a little bit more efficient than Thunders, but Thunders are still good. They're they're pretty well rounded. They can deal with a multitude of threats on the Nurgle roster. But look at this, ladies and gentlemen. The Dwarves are getting in there. Are they going to be able to flip this? I was actually commentating this game as if it was kind of over, just having the post-game breakdown already. But here, we see the Dwarves moving in. Iron Breakers heading up. Slayers on the objective. Forsaken, though, are pretty much a hard counter against Slayers. They have the armor to mitigate the Slayers' damage, and they hit super hard. But nice blasting charge right there, and a Rune of Wrath and Ruin. But the Slayers do make it in. Dwarves certainly not in a good position here. We see Dwarven karate kicks coming in from the distance, but the Forsaken are going to be clawing through a lot of these Dwarven Slayers. Granted, they are the Dragonback Slayers, so their melee defense is a little bit better. And is Nurgle going to be able to hold on? I think so. I just think it's too far for the Dwarves. Yeah, we have Chosen of Nurgle here. We got Plague Toads up in here. Forsaken cutting through a lot of the capture weight. And you can see it's going back and forth, but that's a hell of a lot of Dwarves coming in. Slayers as well as Dwarf Warriors. They didn't hear no bell. It's a long journey, but they only have, oh man, they barely have any time. They have 25 seconds to get this. Oh, look at the plays. The Curse of the Slug going down from Outer Region is going to be slowing these guys down. And a little play like that can make all the difference in a tight game. If they had gotten to that point a little bit quicker, maybe the objective could have been flipping for the Dwarves. But at the end of the day, there's only 8 seconds left, and it looks like Nurgle and the Plague God is going to be claiming victory here. Just a war of attrition, but at the end of the day, the forces of Nurgle are going to be succeeding in corrupting this land. Oh, look at this guy, dude. This guy's doing some crazy, he's the hero pose right there, man. That was fun. All right. So great game by both players, honestly. I think if the Dwarf players' cannon priority had been a little bit better, the targeting had been shooting either the Soul Grinder or Kugath a little bit earlier and just kind of sticking with it, screening them out of the battle, keeping them from pressing in. And then also maybe pushing past the Cultists. I did feel as if a lot of the units on the Dwarf army got caught up on the Cultists, and it's easy to just leave them there, but I think you got to push past them and just keep moving because it takes too long to kill them. They did eventually get routed, but I mean, they were just causing havoc the entire game. It was a great game, though. Both players played well. You know, Outer Region was getting pounded on value really badly, and he still found a way to win. So certainly it was a great game. 1,400, 1,900, not bad. Chosen with 1,300 paid for themselves, and we're still fighting at the very bitter end of the game. Cultists, of course, very good, but Nurgle's army wasn't really about the value. It was more about the staying power there. And for the Dwarves, cannons did great. They still got a lot of value, despite what, you know, I felt could have been a little bit better targeting, but even still did quite good. Thunders here, not bad. 900, 500 here on these bad boys. Thoric Ironbrow at 1,800. Absolute raid boss for sure. And yeah, it was good stuff. GG, well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Let me know if there's any other matchups you guys want to see. I'll do my best to get them out there. And that is it for tonight.